The bridge of the Imperial warship Dominion was bathed in a dim blue glow. Holographic displays flickered with data, alien symbols dancing across the screens. Commander Xelroth, a veteran of countless battles, stood with his hands clasped behind his back, gazing out at the vast emptiness of space. In the distance, Earth hung like a fragile blue pearl. A deep voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "Admiral, we have intercepted a transmission from the planet." Xelroth turned, his four glowing eyes narrowing. "Put it through." A strange, distorted voice filled the bridge. It was calm. Too calm. "This is a warning. Earth is off limits. Leave now or face annihilation." Silence followed. The officers exchanged glances, their scales shifting uneasily. The warning wasn't a plea. It wasn't a desperate cry for mercy. It was a statement, cold, absolute, and final. One of the junior officers scoffed. "Primitive fools. They think they can threaten the Galactic Empire." Xelroth, however, didn't respond immediately. He had crushed dozens of civilizations under his fleet's might. Yet something about this message bothered him. The humans weren't begging. They weren't afraid. Another officer, Tarvek, a tactical specialist, analyzed the signal. "The message isn't being broadcast from any known human military base. It's coming from everywhere. Multiple satellites. Hidden relays. Their entire planetary system is transmitting the same message simultaneously." Xelroth frowned. "That's impossible. No primitive species should have this level of coordination." "Shall I jam the signal, Commander?" Xelroth waved a dismissive claw. "Let them have their warning. It won't matter." He turned back to the large display screen where a fleet of 500 Imperial warships loomed in high orbit. They had enough firepower to reduce Earth to rubble in hours. He had crushed civilizations far more advanced than this one. Yet, something felt wrong. The first wave of invasion dropships prepared for descent. Thousands of heavily armored alien soldiers sat inside the transports, their weapons primed. Their mission was simple: land, establish control, and eliminate any resistance. The countdown began. "All dropships, prepare for descent." The lead vessel, HFY, initiated its thrusters, diving towards the planet's atmosphere. The pilot's voice crackled over the comms. "We are beginning our approach. No resistance detected." The fleet watched in silence as the dropship vanished into the thick cloud layers of Earth. Seconds ticked by. Then minutes. Then nothing. "HFY, report your status." "Static. Dropship HFY, do you copy?" Still nothing. Xelroth's jaw tightened. He turned to his officer. "Get me visual contact. Now." The scanners swept the area where the dropship had entered. No debris. No explosion. It was simply gone. Panic rippled through the fleet. An entire dropship, carrying over 200 elite soldiers, had just vanished without a trace. A second officer, voice trembling, reported in. "Commander, another transmission is coming through. It's from HFY's beacon." Xelroth snapped his head toward the display. "Put it through." A new voice filled the bridge. But it wasn't human. It wasn't anything recognizable. It was a whisper, a chorus of voices, layered together, speaking as one. "We warned you." Xelroth felt a chill crawl up his spine. A scream erupted through the comms. The bridge filled with the sound of soldiers shouting, gunfire, and something else. A deep mechanical humming. Then static. The signal was gone. For the first time in his career, Xelroth hesitated. He turned to Tarvek. "What was that sound?" Tarvek's hands trembled over the console. I don't know, sir. It didn't match any known human weaponry. It was something else." Xelroth clenched his fists. "Send the second wave." Another fleet of dropships launched. They descended through the clouds, their weapons locked and scanning for hostiles. Then, just as before, they vanished. No distress signals, no debris, no explosions, just Emptiness. Zelroth's heart pounded in his chest. He had invaded planets with planetary defense grids, with fleets powerful enough to rival the Empire. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was a trap. Then, without warning, something appeared on the fleet's radar. A single massive energy signature rising from the surface of Earth. It had been hidden, cloaked, undetectable until now. The energy reading spiked. Before Zelroth could react, half of the Imperial fleet's systems went dark. Engines failed. Shields collapsed. Communications cut out. A wave of invisible force surged through space, engulfing the warships in a blackout field. The Imperial fleet, once the mightiest force in the galaxy, now drifted helplessly in orbit, their systems frozen. And then, the Earth spoke again. "You should not have come." Zelroth, for the first time in his life, felt something alien. Fear. The bridge of the Imperial warship Dominion was filled with a tense silence. Commander Zelroth's 4 glowing eyes darted across the flickering displays, scanning for answers. The fleet had come to conquer Earth, yet their first 2 landing waves had vanished without a trace. No wreckage, no distress calls, just silence. "Status report," Zelroth growled, his voice edged with frustration. Tarvek, the tactical officer, struggled to keep his composure. His scaled hands tapped frantically on the control panel, but the data made no sense. "Sir, our dropships, they just disappeared. No impact readings, no energy signatures, no debris. It's like they were never there." Zelroth's jaw clenched. He turned to his fleet-wide communication system. "This is Commander Zelroth. All warships prepare for a full-scale planetary assault. We will not be deterred by." His words were cut short as the ship's lights flickered. For a brief moment, the holographic displays glitched, showing lines of alien symbols that were not Imperial code. It was as if something, or someone, was inside their systems. "Sir," an officer shouted, "the fleet's communication channels are being hijacked." Before Zelroth could respond, a voice filled the bridge. It was the same eerie, multi-layered whisper that had come from the missing dropship's beacon. But now it was clearer, stronger. "You are not in control." A cold wave passed through the crew. Then, without warning, all external communications went dark. Zelroth slammed his fist against the control panel. "Reboot our systems. I want full operational control restored now." The engineers scrambled to respond, but Tarvek's face paled as he stared at his screen. "Sir, something is overriding our command systems." "How is that possible?" Zelroth demanded. "No species in this sector has technology that advanced." Tarvek swallowed hard. "Except, it's not their technology. It's ours." A stunned silence filled the bridge. Zelroth took a step forward. "Explain." The tactical officer's fingers trembled as he expanded the data feed. "Sir, the virus infecting our systems, it's Imperial code, but it's been altered, rewritten. It's like it's been studied and improved upon." Zelroth's blood ran cold. That was impossible. The Empire had been watching Earth for centuries. Humans were primitive. They had only recently developed interstellar travel. How could they possibly have access to Imperial-grade cyber warfare? Then something even worse happened. The ships nearest to Earth's atmosphere, still waiting for orders, began firing on each other. Panic erupted across the fleet. Officers shouted in confusion, trying to reach the crews of the rogue warships. But there was no response. The infected ships turned, their weapons locking onto their own allies. One by one, they began firing. Brilliant beams of plasma energy tore through the dark void of space. A battle had begun, but not between the Empire and Earth. The Empire was fighting itself. Zelroth's hands clenched into fists. He had witnessed many wars, but never like this. Never against an enemy that refused to reveal itself. The tactical display in front of him continued to glitch. One by one, More ships lost control. Crews desperately tried to override the commands, but the Imperial systems were designed with failsafes. If a higher-ranked officer took control remotely, there was nothing they could do. And right now someone, or something, was acting as the highest authority. But these weren't crude, human-built vessels. Their designs were sleek, angular, with shifting plates of energy-cloaked armor. Unlike the bulky Imperial dreadnoughts, these ships moved with an eerie smoothness, their hulls almost pulsing as they activated. The Empire had seen many advanced warships before, but there was something different about these. Zelroth's mind raced. How had the humans built these? Where had they come from? Then it hit him. The wreckage. For centuries, the Empire had fought its wars across the stars. Countless battles, countless lost ships. Some of those ships had never been recovered. And now, the answer was clear. Earth hadn't developed its own technology. It had stolen the Empire's secrets. They had taken the broken remains of fallen warships, reverse-engineered their cloaking systems, their AI networks, their weapons, and they had done it in complete silence. Zelroth's voice was a whisper. They were never behind. They were just hiding. The first of the Earth warships vanished from sight. Not jumped to light speed. Not moved. Vanished. Cloaked so perfectly that even the Empire's sensors couldn't track them. The fleet watched in stunned silence. Then, chaos erupted. The Imperial ships, still under their own control, suddenly detonated, explosions tearing through their hulls in rapid succession. But there were no missiles, no beams of energy. The enemy was unseen. They struck with pinpoint precision, their weapons cutting through the Empire's greatest warships like they were nothing more than ancient relics. No alarms, no warnings, just death. Zelroth's mind screamed for a solution, but there was none. The enemy wasn't attacking. It was hunting. One of the Dominion's officers gasped, "Sir, I have an energy spike." The screen in front of him shattered, his body thrown backward as something sliced through the hull with surgical precision. Zelroth's eyes darted around as the walls of his own ship began to twist and break apart. They weren't just disabling the fleet. They were dissecting it. A deep humming sound filled the bridge, vibrating through the very metal beneath their feet. It was coming from the warships. No, not warships. Machines. They weren't just piloted vessels. They were something else entirely. Then the transmission came again. The same glowing-eyed figure from before, its metallic veins pulsing with an unnatural energy. It looked directly at them, its expression calm. "We have studied you." Zelroth's heart pounded. "We have learned from you." The ship trembled violently. "And now, we will end you." The screen went black, and Earth's secret weapon struck. Commander Zelroth stood frozen on the bridge of the Dominion, watching in horror as the greatest fleet in the history of the Galactic Empire was torn apart. For centuries, the Empire had conquered worlds with ease. Their warships were unmatched. Their weapons were feared across the stars. No species had ever resisted them for long. Yet now, against this primitive world called Earth, their mighty fleet was dying. Zelroth's claws dug into the armrests of his command chair as another Imperial dreadnought erupted into a fireball, its massive hull splitting apart like it was made of paper. They can't be this strong. It's not possible. And yet, here they were, unseen ships, impossible weapons, an enemy that had been waiting in the shadows. "Commander!" Tar, Vec shouted. His voice was raw with panic. "We've lost 60% of the fleet. They're cutting through us like..." His words were drowned out by a deafening metallic groan as something ripped through the Dominion's hull. The entire ship lurched, sending officers crashing to the floor. Zelroth grabbed the control panel, forcing himself to his feet. "Shields. Status. Shields are down." Another officer yelled. "Weapons are failing. Engines air." His voice cut out as the ship's power flickered. Then, in the eerie silence, the whispers returned. Your empire is an illusion. The words seemed to echo inside their skulls, as if spoken directly into their minds. Your strength is borrowed. Your power is stolen. And now, it is ours. A new warning blared through the bridge. Zell, Roth's eyes snapped to the tactical display. More of them were coming. The cloaked warships had finished dismantling the outer fleet. Now they were turning toward the last remaining ships, the Dominion among them. Zelleroth knew he had one chance. They had to run. "We are leaving," he barked. "All surviving ships, break formation and retreat. Now." But the order came too late. As the remaining Imperial warships powered their engines, something happened. A deep hum filled the void of space. It was so low that it could almost be felt more than heard. The air vibrated inside the Dominion's walls. And then, the stars disappeared. A massive energy field spread across the battlefield, covering the Imperial fleet in a shimmering blue haze. The warp drives of every ship fizzled out instantly. They were trapped. Zelleroth's throat tightened. No, 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 no. The enemy had planned for this. They had let the Empire believe it was an easy invasion. Let them bring their entire fleet. And now, like cornered prey, they had closed the cage. Outside, the last of the Empire's warships were falling. Some were ripped apart by unseen weapons. Others were hacked from within, their own systems turning against them. One by one, the Imperial ships went dark. And then the final blow came. A massive object began to emerge from the void, larger than anything in the battle so far. It wasn't just a warship. It was a fortress. It hovered over the wreckage of the Imperial fleet like a silent judge. And then it fired. A single blinding beam of energy erupted from the fortress, striking the Imperial flagship at its core. The Dominion shook violently. Zelleroth barely had time to scream as the ship's hull split apart, the raw energy consuming everything in its path. And then, there was only silence. The invincible fleet of the Galactic Empire was no more. The Dominion was dying. The once mighty flagship of the Galactic Empire's invasion fleet was now a burning wreck, torn apart from within and without. Fires raged across the bridge, filling the air with thick black smoke. Bodies of Imperial officers lay strewn across the floor, their lifeless eyes reflecting the flickering emergency lights. Commander Zelleroth coughed, pushing himself up from the floor. Blood dripped down his forehead, but he ignored the pain. He staggered toward the command console, gripping the edges to keep himself steady. Outside the viewport, the Empire's fleet was gone. The greatest warships ever built had been hunted down and destroyed, not by a superior armada, not by overwhelming firepower, but by something else. Something that had studied them, learned their weaknesses, and dismantled them piece by piece. But Zelleroth was not dead yet. He tapped furiously on the console, bypassing security locks and rerouting power. If he was going to die, he would not go down without a fight. "Status report," he barked. Only Tarvek was left to respond. The tactical officer was slumped against the wall, clutching his arm where a shard of metal had pierced through his armor. His voice was hoarse. Weapons, offline. Shields, gone. Engines at 4% power. He looked up, his reptilian eyes filled with something Zelleroth had never seen before. Defeat. Zelleroth clenched his fists. He refused to accept it. The Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had burned civilizations to the ground. And now, they were being hunted by a race they had dismissed as primitive. No. If this was his final stand, he would make sure they remembered his name. He slammed a command into the console. Reroute all remaining power to the forward cannons. I don't care if we only get one shot. We are taking something down with us. Tarvek hesitated. Sir, it won't matter. We're outmatched. Zelleroth's 4 glowing eyes burned with fury. Then let them know what happens when you corner an Imperial warrior. A new alarm blared across the ship. Something was approaching. Zelleroth turned to the viewport, his breath catching in his throat. A single vessel was moving toward them. It was unlike any warship he had ever seen. Its shape shifted unnaturally, as if it wasn't bound by the same physical laws as other ships. Its surface pulsed with blue energy, and its hull was marked with symbols that glowed like living circuits. And then it spoke. Not through the ship's speakers, not through any communication system. It spoke directly into their minds. "Surrender," growled. His claws dug into the console. "Never." He pressed the fire command. The Dominion's last remaining cannon fired a desperate shot. A beam of searing red energy cut through the darkness of space, aimed directly at the approaching enemy. It should have been enough to cripple any ship. It should have done something. But as the beam struck, the enemy vessel simply absorbed it. The energy rippled across its surface, swallowed like a drop of water into an endless ocean. And then it fired back. A thin, silent beam of light shot from the alien warship and pierced straight through the Dominion's core. The ship shuddered violently. Consoles exploded. The floor cracked apart. Tarvek screamed as the energy surge engulfed him. Zelaroth fell to his knees, gasping for breath as the heat of the blast seared his armor. He looked up, his vision blurring. The alien ship hovered silently, watching, waiting. And then the whispers returned. "This is your end." Zelaroth's eyes dimmed as the last of his strength left him. And the Dominion was no more. Deep within the heart of the Galactic Empire, a vast and towering citadel loomed over the capital world of Zephyrian Prime. It was the center of power, where the High Council ruled over thousands of conquered worlds with absolute authority. Inside the Great War Hall, Emperor Varictal sat upon his blackened throne, his golden armor gleaming under the dim red lights. Around him, members of the High Council whispered nervously, their scaled faces tense. The invasion fleet had gone silent. No messages, no distress signals, just nothing. The fleet that had been sent to crush Earth was the mightiest in history. Led by Commander Acceleroth, a warrior known for his ruthless efficiency, it was supposed to be a mere formality, a show of force. The primitive world should have been burning by now. And yet here they were, waiting. A deep mechanical hum filled the chamber. A messenger drone descended from above, its sleek metallic frame gliding across the room until it reached the Emperor's throne. The Imperial sigil flashed across its surface before it spoke. "Incoming transmission." Every council member turned toward the floating drone. A message. Finally. The screen activated, revealing a dark void of space. At first, nothing was visible, just emptiness. Then wreckage appeared. Endless, silent wreckage. It was the fleet, or rather, what was left of it. Twisted metal drifted lifelessly, the broken remains of Imperial warships floating like dead beasts in an ocean of darkness. No survivors, no signs of escape pods, just destruction. Gasps filled the chamber. The High Council stared in horror as the camera panned through the battlefield. The Empire's greatest war fleet had been reduced to scrap. Emperor Varictal's grip tightened on his throne. His glowing eyes burned with rage. "Who did this?" he growled. "Who dares?" And then they saw it. A shadow moved in the distance. Not a ship, not a fleet, something else. It was massive, its form shifting as if made of living metal. Strange symbols pulsed across its hull, glowing in an eerie, unnatural rhythm. Its surface shimmered, revealing glimpses of 1,000 unknown technologies, far beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. And then it spoke. Not through the transmission, not through words. It spoke directly into their minds. "Your fleet is gone." A chill spread through the chamber. Some council members shuddered, gripping their robes as the voice echoed in their skulls. "You were warned." The Emperor's expression darkened. Warned. He leaned forward, his claws digging into the armrests. Then the screen flickered, and an image appeared. A recording. It was an old transmission, one the Council had dismissed years ago. A human, an old man with tired eyes and a steel resolve. He had sent a warning long before this war began. The Emperor remembered his words clearly. Earth is off limits to all. At the time, they had laughed. What could a primitive world do against an empire? Now, the laughter was gone. The screen shifted back to the wreckage. The strange entity hovered over the ruins of the Imperial fleet, watching them like a silent executioner. And then, the voice spoke one final time. "This is your only warning." The screen went dark. The war hall fell into silence. The High Council, once so full of arrogance, sat in stunned disbelief. Emperor Varric Tal's hands trembled slightly as he stared at the lifeless screen. He had ruled for centuries, had crushed rebellions, had bent civilizations to his will. But now, for the first time, he felt something foreign. Fear. Earth was not just another world. It was something else. And the message was clear. Earth is off limits.